is making a comeback.
Election 2020 is in full swing with South Carolina and Super Tuesday looming, and if the Democratic debate in South Carolina is a harbinger of things to come, a bitter and divisive primary is dead ahead for the Democrats. Of course, frontrunner Bernie Sanders is still, pretty much in the hot seat. As such, he's taking a lot of incoming from the moderate and establishment wings of his own party. Joe Biden is still making his share of gaffes, talking about running for the Senate and getting his facts and figures basically all mixed up. Warren is out to bludgeon verbally Michael Bloomberg with his checkered past regarding women, and Buttigieg is trying to sound like the adult in the room at age 38. So much to say, so little time. Let's get right to it with our LN Top Political Junkies. Our Liberty Nation panel today includes Washington political columnist Tim Donner. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Lisa.
National correspondent Sarah Cowgill, hailing from the heartland. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Lisa.
And political columnist Joe Schaefer.
Hello, Lisa.
Okay, Tim, let's start with you. Fabulous piece of political analysis on LN titled Dems and Bernie, a Pivotal Moment in History. In that article you wrote, nothing short of a civil war within the party will likely be able to stop Bernie. Really?
Well, if he wins South Carolina, that's the hedge. If he wins South Carolina, he's gone 4-0 with Super Tuesday coming up. We've got a total of 21 contests. That's more than 40% of the country voting over the next few days. By that time, if Bernie Sanders hasn't been stopped, and there's no indication that anybody has a viable plan to stop him, he's not going to be able to be stopped because the people want to vote for who they want to vote for, and they know who they don't want to vote for, which is the old establishment types, any more in the Democratic Party this year than in the Republican Party in 2016 when Donald Trump wiped out the whole field.
Sarah, are you telling me that Bernie is a freight train unstoppable and he's rolling through the United States of America?
I think he is, but I also think that James Carville and Chris Matthews and some of the other party elites and the people who are normal thinkers that don't want socialism are going to throw a cow onto the tracks. I do believe that they will upend him.
Joe.
Well, I think the freight train is a good analogy. I think the Democratic establishment is the freight train, like Tim said in his excellent article. And that freight train is going right off a cliff. And they have no one to blame for themselves. They have not represented the grassroots for some time now, much like the Republican establishment. They got a 4-year reprieve from the Hillary Clinton political machine. And now the bill is due, and they are getting what the Republican establishment got in 2016, and they deserve it.
Joe, you wrote a piece for Liberty Nation. Biden's viability continues to melt away like ice cream dropped on a summer sidewalk. It's pitiful to bring up, but Joe Biden seems to be falling apart on the campaign trail. Is he political toast or not?
Well, the Democratic establishment had better hope he's political toast, because if he wins South Carolina or comes close, he's going to keep hanging around, and that is the worst thing for them right now. They have to come up with somebody who can beat Bernie Sanders, and anyone with eyes who can see knows that Joe Biden is a mess. He is a historically awful candidate at this point. He can't go one day without making some major gaffe that just makes him look ridiculous. The sooner he is gone, the better for the Democratic establishment, yet they seem to want to see him win South Carolina, which is going to be a boomerang. It's going to go right back in their face, because that's going to help Bernie Sanders in the long run, having no real opposition to getting the nomination.
Tim, it's interesting. You used to be the Uprising podcast Joe Biden correspondent, and you moved on to Michael Bloomberg. But what say you about Uncle Joe?
Well, he came right out of the gate saying that he is threatening gun manufacturers. This, he thinks, is a winning issue for him. He's pandering to the left. He's pandering in every way he can. He said he would name a black woman as Supreme Court justice just before the South Carolina primary. in a debate where the pandering level was unprecedented, even among this group. Joe Biden, I think, is dead man walking. It's just a matter of when the pulse finally goes out.
Sarah, do you agree with him?
I do. I'm really surprised he's still standing, and I think the only hopes the Democrats have is if Bloomberg and Sanders go head to head, and whoever wins that, contest is going to be facing the Republicans in 2020 or in November 2020. I think he's got to step down, even if he says it's because he's exhausted and he can't remember if he's running for president or Senate.
Well, I'm sorry to say, but I'll just chime in here. I think Joe Biden is suffering some serious repercussions of neurological problems, and I think for his own good he should get out. But we shall see what happens. Now, you mentioned earlier, Sarah, James Carville and Chris Matthews. They are railing nightly, and as are many of the establishment Democrats, they're going berserk on places like MSNBC. Joe, do they need to take responsibility for the monster they've created?
I think you're seeing them take responsibility in the abject panic that we're witnessing day after day after day. I mean, they knew they created this monster. Now they got to figure out how to tamp it down and get rid of the little socialist. They can't let a socialist run in this country, not yet anyway.
Joe?
Well, I think that's a great way of putting it. They created this monster with their control mechanisms, the way they wanted to keep playing this little game and staying in power. Identity politics was a control mechanism, and it is blown up in their face. It's gotten to the point now where they have genuine socialism on their hands, and they can't just play at this game anymore, and the pitchforks are coming out for them. What would be interesting to me, the only establishment figure, and I'm going to call him establishment, is that can really save them is Barack Obama. Will he come out and take on Bernie Sanders and try to save this tottering Democrat establishment? That would be fascinating to see, because I'm not sure he wants to do it, but I think he's going to be pushed heavily by the people who have been propping him up financially for a long time now. There's going to put pressure on him to save this building that is collapsing all around them.
Tim?
Well, what's happened with the Democratic establishment over the last 4 years, almost 5, is that they have radicalized their party base with undiluted, constant, extreme hatred of Donald Trump and everything that he does, everything that he says. If he walked on water, they would say he can't swim. I mean, it's literally like that. So they've stoked this unprecedented level of hatred for Trump among their base. So what do they expect them to do? To come back with a radical socialist agenda, because they've been radicalized by the establishment, which decided that Donald Trump must be removed from office no matter by what means avail themselves.
All right, lightning round. Who's still standing after Super Tuesday? Joe, we'll start with you.
I think Bernie will be solid. Biden will be hanging around, unfortunately, for Dems. And I think Pete Buttigieg will survive. For what reason, I don't know. The rest of them should get out. If they don't get out, they're just living in denial.
Sarah?
No, of course, Bernie's going to be around. And I do believe Bloomberg is still going to be around. He is the actual antithesis to socialism. He's the only one they got. Everybody else is pandering to progressives. I think he's going to be sticking around. Even if nothing else, he has the most money and he keeps throwing it at the wrong audience, but he's got the most money and that plays well in politics.
Tim?
Well, the only one I see really dropping out is Amy Klobuchar, because her campaign has stalled and there's too much competition in the moderate lane. But with the proportional awarding of delegates that goes on throughout this Democratic primary, you can get 20% of the vote, 25%, and walk away with a few delegates. So why should you give those up when you can go to the convention and hold some power with those delegates? So I think no matter what happens, Klobuchar's, my prediction would be she's the only one that drops out. Everybody else will hold out hope, including Elizabeth Warren, who has the funding and the long-term campaign plans to stay in the race, even though she has no chance.
Well, for the first time for a husband and wife, I actually agree with you. Thank you very much, Joe, Sarah, and Tim. Stay tuned to LibertyNation.com for fresh, bold news analysis daily. And remember to cleanse your political soul by signing up for our daily briefing. I'm Lisa K. Donner, Editor-in-Chief of LN. Thanks so much for watching.
Truth is making a comeback.